a lot, this is the bottom line of what's really going on globally that a lot of people don't get, is that we're really being controlled by there's a lot of extraterrestrial activity going on. And some of it is what we would call demonic, and some of it is benevolent. And there are different groups and races of aliens here that look like people that have control over things that are going on this planet. And basically the biggest thing that gets traded here on our planet is human beings and DNA and genetics.
But now you understand that what we're talking about now, for anybody who has anyone really would consider that what we're talking about is absolute horse shit. How do you carry that message along? Because because a lot of people, I have one of my friends, right? He doesn't believe in anything that's anything extraterrestrial. There's absolutely no way that it exists. And everybody's entitled to their beliefs, but I think that there are certain things that, whether you want or not, obviously we are humans, we cannot explain all phenomena, but some things honestly call for questioning, what we say.
Something very simple. And this is scientific fact that anybody can look up. Anybody who has a negative blood type has a blood type that didn't originate on this planet. That's scientific.
I'm an alien because I'm negative A.
Yeah. So yeah, you have extraterrestrial DNA.
Shit.
I'm O negative, as do I.
Interesting.
So,
and how do we know that?
It's this. I did research a long time ago on my blood type because I was trying to figure out why I was allergic to every daggone thing. Like I was like, why am I allergic to this, that, the other? I can't eat this, I can't eat that. So I started doing some research and I stumbled across information about people who are Rh negative. That like, first of all, if our blood type didn't originate on this planet, that means it originated from someplace else, right? And then, some of the books I've read, like the Book of Enki, basically those extraterrestrials, the Anunnaki, came and they mated with people who were here. And
I've read that. I've read that.
That explains why some of us might have a blood type that didn't originate on this planet. And if that's the case, then that says to me that extraterrestrials are not these green, purple, and blue things that we think they are.
Yeah.
That it could just be people who are walking around among us and we don't even know who's who. So that being said, like when we're thinking about these demonic forces and a lot of our belief systems, a lot of it is based on stuff that actually happened that seemed fantastical because it was extraterrestrial technology. Like it's even all through the Bible. And I learned this from Minister Farrakhan. He talked about Ezekiel's wheel. That was a ship. So it's all through the Bible, little references to the extraterrestrials.
But let me ask you a question though. Isn't it like, isn't it like any religious scriptures that can be read and understood given the opticals you want to, the opticals of a given agenda, right? Isn't it something that could be interpreted? Because that's the thing, right? Interpretation is the truth that you make of it.
Absolutely.
So my thing is that, I do believe that there are indeed extraterrestrials for sure out there. Like there is extraterrestrials forms of lives. And we are, we're definitely dealing with some things for sure.
Watch this movie called Above Majestic.
Above Majestic.
I think it's on Netflix. If it's not, it might be on Hulu or one of those channels, maybe Amazon Prime or something. But Above Majestic explains kind of the origins of some of the belief systems and some of the extraterrestrials that were here. Because like one of the first things that really hit me in that movie was that like the majority of books that we've been reading in terms of like our education system and our medical institutions have been full of lies. Like we've been given a whole agenda to keep us under control.
I mean, to a certain
So,
extent, I definitely agree with that. I think that, I mean, if you just look at the history of Africa and Black people in general, it's been completely bastardized and changed to suit a given agenda. That's for sure. Um, and I see that every day when I speak to people who are supposedly very literate, and they are very literate, but their literacy is received
dumb.
or acquired through reading books that are indeed unfortunately pushing that agenda, which states facts, but that are completely either changed or made up. But yeah, and of course, to tell a good lie, you need a little bit of truth in it, right? So
Right, absolutely.
so how now the whole thing about demonic forces, I think that I really believe that we as humans are capable of the best and the worst, right? We agree on that.
Absolutely.
Therefore, I do understand that there are some people that operate. They came to this form of life that we call, well, they came here in this existence to serve light and darkness. I do believe that there are people who are definitely, standing in both those
Yes.
degrees. But then there is
And then they
the
choose.
and don't you think that, and I do feel like what the era we're in right now is an era where everybody wants to be in the gray. Everybody wants to be, it's okay to be both. Yes, of course,
Right.
because if I am ultimately in harmony, an harmonious flow between my negative and my positive, of course I am both. But it's which one am I feeding, right?
Right.
And so if
Right.
you feed the negative, does it make you um, uh, more accessible to those lower vibration type of like beings? Or are we talking about beings? What is it? Explain a little bit more. Define a little bit more what you mean by
I think
demonic forces.
you pretty much hit it on the head. Like the beings that are of that lower frequency, if you're attracted to that energy, then that's what you'll be more prone to give up your spirit and your energy to.
Hmm.
And if you're operating in that lower frequency, you're not going to connect with your higher self. You're not going to have a great experience while you're here on this plane of existence in this
That
human form.
isn't that why? Also, I tell that to people that I know who smoke weed for, and as they smoke weed, they realize that wow, some spiritual awakening happened to them, and they were like amazed at what they were seeing about themselves. And I said, yes, that's fantastic, and that's actually the point of smoking weed, herbs, because the Rastafarians don't smoke weed just to get high.
Right.
There's a whole spiritual, you know. Agenda behind it, which is to tap into the higher self, right? And sort of
Right.
like connect with that, higher energy, which then lead to understand that once you, unfortunately, even because it is a very powerful herb, which doesn't just relax, but actually helps you tap into a different level of frequency. It can also be super positive, but if you're not watching of your, if you're not mindful of your surrounding, you go all the way
Right.
down real quick.
Right. And then the thing about weed is that it might get you to that point, but then how do you get to that point without it?
That's the most
That's the
important.
next
And
question. Like, how do you get, is it possible to get there without that? Like, you can consume mushrooms.
mhm.
And like, I drink mushroom coffee every day. It's opened my mind up to so many different things. Just drinking mushroom coffee, not smoking weed necessarily, but like
Yeah.
it's helped my mind be more clear. So there are different herbs that don't necessarily make you feel high that will open your mind up and open you up spiritually. And
Is it
also
the so-called third eye that you're talking about? What is it? What is it?
the third eye, but also like just having a sense of clairvoyance. The
Hmm.
less toxins you have in your body, the easier it is for you to connect with your higher self or your more spiritual self. Like
Hmm.
and I didn't realize that until there was this detox called Clean Start. And
Mm.
my husband put me down with that. Like one time I was just like, I feel like I'm full of crap. He was like, you should try this. Clean Start's really good. It'll clean everything out. It's like a 14-day detox with just
Okay.
like some pills and like some stuff you put in a juice or whatever.
Hmm.
When I got to about I want to say day 10, because it was deep in the detox. I had a couple of visions that were weird. Like I had a dream one night where my daughter's old babysitter, who I hadn't spoken to, and when I say babysitter, she's 16. This was a woman who watched her when she was a baby. That she suddenly had a major toothache that came out of nowhere, and her husband was in the hospital because he had a crisis with his diabetes. That was the dream I had. I woke up the next morning and called her, and I was like, this is going to sound weird. I said, but I had a really strange dream last night that you had a massive toothache that came out of nowhere, and your husband was in the hospital because of some issue with his diabetes. She said, oh my God. She said, that's exactly what happened. She said, how did you know that? She said, and I haven't talked to you in over a year or two, and you just call with that, and that's exactly what happened last night.
So you had a clairvoyant experience. Was it
doing this detox?
So that detox removed the pollution of whatever you had gathered internally, but also externally.
Yes.
But is it a detox or is it? Oh, okay, yeah. So it's the result of your desire to go. Yeah. So I think because I think a lot of this information is really heavy for a lot of people who may. I mean, they may actually seem that we're fucking crazy.
We're crazy, right?
But. But this shit is actually real, you know, to a certain extent. Joël Amen, bienvenue. Merci beaucoup de nous rejoindre. Because you see, again, it breaks all concepts or ideas that we have about, you know, well, what
we're able to do, what we're capable of. Like we're all capable of so much more than we allow ourselves we give ourselves credit for. Like there are certain certain abilities and certain things that we probably could tap into if we were more mindful, meditative, 100%. And open up our spirit more to that energy. And like by energy,
by energy, we are clear that we're talking about that enlightened force, that higher frequency,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. And not a specific,
because you cannot elevate from a low frequency. Or can you? Right. Well, I mean, can you elevate from a low frequency desiring to tap into the high frequency?
Of course, it has to be a choice.
Or can you elevate down or down? I guess I don't know if it makes any sense, but because I guess also in the lower frequency, it is as you call demonic forces and realms and sort of some like of they have their own hierarchy and degrees of growth in their own thing. Right. I mean, because as I told you, when I was sitting down, I swear to God, that guy was one of the nicest dude I've met. Like so nice, so cool, like very helpful. And he showed me his card. He's like, yeah, I'm a satanist. He's like, yeah, this is my member card of my, we have the satanist temple here. And I was like, I swear to God, man, I had like goosebumps running from the top of my spine all the way down to my feet. And I was like, oh Lord, I was starting to recite all sorts of mantras. And I was like, but then I was like, okay, let me, because this is the thing. I think fear is also one of the way how those negative energies and those.
Absolutely.
That guy, and again, I was like, wow, this is so crazy. That guy's such a nice dude, like very genuinely nice. I mean, and then he genuinely believed that he is an anti-conformist. He's an anti-society, whatever. In his mind, being a satanist means that he is just against the norm, and that's what Satan standard for. And I'm like, fuck, if I look at it from your perspective, I understand your point. I just don't vibe like that. I just don't relate to it because I think that.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but then because I mean I've had proof time and time again that these lower energies, even though we are capable of the worst and the best as humans, this is exactly why as humans we need to uphold ourselves to a level of integrity, a level of respect of what just life is, right? And so, right. Again, when you listen to this guy, and that's where I would understand that a weak spirit would actually fall. But then, is it a weak spirit, or is it just somebody who says, "Well, actually, that's vibing with me, and that's what I'm going for"? I'm confused. I'm confused as how and what people chooses, and then it actually shook my whole and this, it didn't shook it as far as the basis, but it shook my whole preconceived ideas, and I was like, fuck. So is it an intentional choice, or again?
Well, the Socialist Manifesto matches and is like a part of like the Luciferian Satanist movement. So like if you look at it from a socialist perspective, you'll go, okay, well, this sounds good. Everybody should have equality. Everybody should have, and not just equality, everybody should have access to the same resources. It sounds good if you read it a certain way. Like we should all help people, and it all sounds good.
That's the idea that they're pushing, yeah.
Right. And that's the Socialist Manifesto. But at the end of the day, some of those energies don't leave space for love. And that's the problem. Like I remember I met a guy just like you who they were an atheist. They didn't believe in anything. So it was a guy who took me out on a date years ago. And I was just
but I do believe in God, though. Let's not get it twisted. I'm not an atheist.
No. I'm just neither. Of course, I believe in God too. So when I was talking to this guy and he was like, "I'm an atheist," I was like, "Well, this is our last date," and he was like, "Why?" I said
No,
nothing
Jesus.
against you. No, not that. I said nothing against you. I said, but I do have my own belief system, and I do believe in God. I believe in the Creator. I said so. We're not going to be what we call equally yoked because we're not going to have similar beliefs. So this can't go anywhere because we already know we're not going to agree on a lot of stuff. So there's no point in going any further. He was a very nice person though. And he was trying to understand why I felt like that. And it wasn't that I had anything against him. He was a very nice person, gentleman, good dude. But at the end of the day, because I didn't see eye to eye with his beliefs, like I asked him, I said, so what is love? If, you're an atheist? That was my question to him. And he was just like, well, it's a bunch of chemical reactions in the body that make you feel a certain thing. I was like, that's very, limited.
But is it limited? But my question is it limited, or is it just an other way of approaching the topic that is just not the same narrative or the same lingo? Because when you listen to purely scientists who don't believe in anything, superior, right? For them, it's just particles and matters and, cells and whatever. Some of it, most of it, actually, when you listen to it and you parallel it to a more spiritual conversation, it's the same exact thing. It's just that they're putting words. I agree. It is, but it isn't. I guess because then like we can get into a whole bunch of I was trying to explain like a different concept to my daughter, like in terms of different dimensions and different timelines.